So now that the M2 Air has been released, it's really made the older M1 Air a terrific deal, as it's of course now been discontinued and it often goes on sale for $399. And so let's talk about how this is a great buy in 2024. So why do I like the M1 iPad Air so much? Well, this is the cheapest way to get an M series chipset in an iPad, and with pro apps for the iPad getting major updates as of late, the Air far easily offers the best bang for your buck for creatives. In the past, if you asked me which iPad you should get as a laptop replacement, I would have said, you're better off sticking to a non-M series iPad. Yes, there was Stage Manager and better external display support on the newer iPads, but it wasn't enough to warrant the much higher cost, especially when the power wasn't being utilized to the fullest. And ultimately, for a lot of creatives, you could do your work just fine on older iPads, since they all ran the same third-party software like LumaFusion, and when you could find refurbished iPad Air 4s and iPad Pros for much less, I usually recommended many to go for those. However, now with the major improvements to Final Cut and Logic Pro on iPads, it does change my perspective completely on M series iPads, and makes the M1 Air insane value. You know what else is insane value? Subscribing to this channel, of course. It's free and it would bring you the latest about Apple right to subscription box, so please consider it. It would be appreciated. Anyways, while Logic Pro can run on A12 devices and above, Final Cut only works on M1 iPads and above. And so for an up-and-coming creator, it's pretty crazy you can get the M1 iPad Air for $399 and get access to some of the best pro apps on the market. Also, Apple finally giving us a major revamp to pro apps on iPads means it's more likely we get things macOS already has on these M series iPads. Hopefully this part of the video ages well when WWDC takes place and we hear more about iPadOS 18. But before I talk about software, let's talk about other aspects. Beginning with the design, there's really nothing special here, but it's a practical design that works. The flat edges are easy to grip onto and of course helps accommodate the Apple Pencil, and it would be nice if the bezels were thinner, but ultimately they do serve a purpose. You can still place your finger somewhere when holding the iPad. The display also similarly has no fancy features, but it does the job. It's 10.9 inches LCD, it has a resolution of 2360 by 1640 with 500 nits of brightness. It's laminated with P3 support, True Tone, and an anti-reflective coating. Yes, it does miss out on 120Hz, which the techies won't be happy about. But I'll be honest guys, iPadOS animations are fluid enough where I don't notice a lack of this. Brightness is also completely fine for indoor usage, and the Apple Pencil experience is unaffected by the lack of 120Hz. It's a laminated panel, so of course, it's still much better to jot things down on this compared to the base iPad. And that does bring me to accessories. This does support the very awesome Magic Keyboard, and I think it's a must-have for anyone wanting the iPad to be a laptop replacement. I know some might be put off by the retail price. It is very expensive, but because it's been around for a few years, you can find this now for much less. I've seen it for as low as $150 open box, which is an incredible price for how good this keyboard is. Also, you have the pencil, which is something only the iPad offers in the range. And not only is this great for note-taking and artwork, but of course, for video editing, you can use this for more precise edits, and Apple themselves have shown how Final Cut has been optimized on the iPads to better work with the pencil. It doesn't support the brand new Apple Pencil Pro, by the way, but the second gen pencil does the job, and similar to the keyboards, it has become a lot cheaper over the years, and so you could probably get the iPad, the pencil, and the keyboards for around $600. By the way, I would totally get the second gen pencil over the USB-C pencil this Air also supports, since the USB-C model lacks wireless charging and pressure sensitivity. Now coming to the best part about this iPad, we have the chip inside. So as I said earlier, this is the cheapest way to access the M series chipset on the iPad. Yes, it's not M2, but M1 is still plenty powerful, and as someone daily driving the M1 MacBook Air, I can tell you that Final Cut runs flawlessly for my edits, and so it should be fine for most creatives as well and the apps they use on this iPad. Also, fun fact, unlike most base M1 MacBook Airs, this does have the 8-core GPU as standards, so really you're going to have no performance issues in my opinion. I will mention here though that if you're a student or a regular consumer considering this, you're just better off saving your cash and getting a non-M series iPad. The performance here really only makes sense for creatives, and if you don't utilize it, it's going to be very similar to older iPads when it comes to regular usage. Anyways, because there's so much performance headroom here, you should be sorted when it comes to software updates. Of course, I can't know for sure how long this iPad's going to be supported, but considering how good M1 still is, I could see both M1 iPads and Macs getting another 5 or 6 years of updates. And because it's an M series chipset, this likely is going to continue getting all the iPadOS features, since remember right now, non-M1 models do miss out on a few things. Yes, Stage Manager isn't fantastic, but considering Apple surprised us with Logic Pro and Final Cut in the first place, I'm a little more confident macOS-like features are coming to these M series iPads very soon. Battery life is also solid, however I will say it's worse in my experience compared to other iPads, specifically the regular models. I'm not exactly sure why, maybe it's the M1 using a little more power, but for most people's needs, this iPad should still be fine endurance-wise. Now another plus with the iPad Air is the USB-C port. While it doesn't offer Thunderbolt speeds, it's still 2 times faster than the iPad Air 4's port, with data transfers up to 10 gigabits per second, so transfer speeds should be completely fine, and it does support displays up to 6K resolution. Quickly touching on the cameras, Apple does recommend you to add footage you record on this iPad to your Final Cut timeline, but please do not do that. This is not the worst sensor in the world, but the rear camera should really only be used in a pinch for things like scanning documents. The front-facing camera, however, is fantastic for video calls since it has center stage, it follows you around the room, and it works really well. It never fails to blow me away. Speakers and mics wise, these are pretty solid. These don't have quad speakers like the Pros do, but they surprisingly get close with two less speakers, and because it's a stereo pair, it's great for watching movies with. Mics have also been great for calls. Touch ID is something I do prefer compared to Face ID on the iPad Pro because I often manage to block the Face ID module when using the Pro models, and so I find it much easier to just press the home button and boom, the iPad instantly unlocks. It's super reliable. Now I do want to finally mention the only problem this iPad Air 5 has is definitely 64 gigs of storage on the base model. Now to be fair, if your usage is really basic and you rely on cloud storage, it's quite easy to live with 64 gigs, but it is pretty annoying. You have the power of the M1 here, and this could literally be a laptop replacement for many, and yet the storage stops you from doing this. There is the 256 gig model, but of course that's usually a lot more expensive, and so really the only solution you have is external storage. Thankfully, external storage is pretty cheap nowadays, so if you're willing to rely on SSDs for your creative workflow, you can make do with the base Air. And that's basically everything regarding the M1 iPad Air. As I said earlier, this iPad makes sense for creatives and those wanting to begin to use pro apps. This is a pretty small investment, and so as long as you know for sure this iPad has the right apps and the features you need, it is a very nice starter machine to begin doing creative work with, and it's definitely a much better buy than the very similar M2 model that doesn't offer many meaningful changes for its much higher price. Like I said though, for people who don't need the performance of the M1 and access to Apple's Pro apps, you're still better off getting an older non-M series iPad. Anyways, let me know your thoughts in the comments, make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this, and thank you for watching. Right, so we are getting very close to WWDC, and Mr. Marcus Gurman continues to drop little tidbits about